then when we have a lot of blood, what happens is the chi is activated. The hands and feet are warm, and so the chi is kept upright. The skin has a glow. The moon cycle winds up having a nice, ovulation. Progesterone levels come up. The body warms up and stops the downward trickling of blood into the uterine cavity, and so then the woman has an easy 2-day light menstruation with no pain. That should be normal.
Okay.
But yeah, it's because of that lack of chi we're seeing, and that sets up a chronic cycle of anemia when that happens.
So for a man, excessive release is going to cause a Jing insufficiency or a Jing deficiency.
Yeah, of the semen release.
Yeah, semen release.
Yeah.
Now, for women with menstrual problems, it's going to cause, we're bleeding chi out. Is that what you're saying?
No, chi is the fuel that supports Jing.
Okay.
So if the chi is leakage, it goes over. It starts to carry over. We're drawing out of that savings account.
Okay, so that's still a Jing. Then that's a Jing problem as well. That excessive leakage through the menstruation.
Yeah. Okay. And childbirthing is a very big Jing leakage. There's a lot of blood usually involved. Loss there. So. Yeah, this is an important herb, but then again, like you're asking about, say a guy could be anemic too. Some vegan men I found are anemic, men who just don't have a lot of robust chi.
Yeah.
They can get there, can wind up a bit anemic too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's keep going with this formula. You've got Tractylodes,
another beautiful
Poria.
blood building herb. This is one of my favorite herbs, Ligusticum. Now this herb is its place in the higher echelons of it hasn't been exploited.
It looks like a root. Is this a root?
Herb. Yeah. Yes, it's a root. Smell this.
God, it just smells delicious.
Yeah. This is my favorite smelling herb. This is what bakeries in the future will smell like when we have our way. But this herb is known to build blood and also calm the heart. So it's really wonderful for. Sometimes stress on the heart can cause chi deficiency too.
All right.
So now what we want to do, we're going to transform this into a woman's formula.
Okay.
So we're kind of moving that direction with blood building. So now what we want to do is sort of like make sure the blood keeps moving, doesn't allow it to kind of not have chi. We want the chi to be moving, the blood. We don't want to let the blood. The Chinese have a term blood stagnation, which sometimes happens in the latter period of the moon cycle for women. Kind of leads to PMS-related symptoms. This is white peony, pretty well-known herb in women's formulas. So we're going to put that in. White peony is a really wonderful herb. It's kind of an anti-spasmodic, anti-cramp herb. But we're going to throw that in there for blood activation, blood moving.
So peony is a flower, right? Mm-hmm. It's like a little flowering bush.
This is the root.
And that's the root. Okay.
Yeah. In Taoist herbalism, we really use a lot of the roots. It's a funny analogy because we're kind of going to the root.
Right. Yeah. Root of the matter.
And that also. Why don't we go back to that when we have the formula done?
Okay.
We'll go back to the reason why we decoct it for an hour. And
sure.
All that.
Yeah.
Okay. So. Now we've got this built up into a formula that's supporting Jing and Qi. Now we're going to start to have fun with the Shin part.
Okay.
We're going to turn it into a three treasures formula and make it bring its synchronicity all together. So we're going to throw some goji in there, right? Just always got to have a little goji in there.
Yeah.
And this herb has been used in Chinese herbal formulas for thousands of years, in tea formulas and housewife medicine in China for thousands of years. We just throw your goji and your longans into the porridge for the family. We will. We're going to add an herb now that will, again, a little example of the sophistication of Chinese tonic, of Chinese herbalism is that we want an herb now to come in here to bring this whole batch into harmony with itself, so that it all winds up kind of harmoniously as
something
one.
that holds the bottom end together.
Yeah. The herb I like in spleen chi formulas and blood formulas like this, and kidney formula is jujube date.
Okay.
Jujube date is one of the only two harmonizing herbs in all the Chinese materia medica. Jujube date and licorice are the two harmonizing herbs. So a true formula you would see, a Chinese formula, would always have one of these in it. To bring it into harmony. Okay, now we get to have some fun with some Shin. Okay, so we're going to talk about this. This is Spirit Poria. This is related to the Poria that we used before to move the water, only now this is a more of a wild sort of version, you know. We have the little bit of a root of a pine tree right here. And that is said to cause it to have shin properties. So this grows around the roots of pine trees.
Okay.
And it is really a good example of that kind of neural network underneath the ground that
and
brings
it's a mushroom.
life together. Yeah, that keeps all of the life, you know, kind of a symbiosis. Yeah, it's a mushroom. I don't think that it actually forms a topical, like a fruiting cap, you know. But it is a mycelia. And so the little pine root part there. This herb is said to help you remove psychic baggage and uplift your spirit, but yet keep you grounded. Because one of the precepts of Taoism is say, hey, let's stay grounded. We're on the earth. We're in this body. Let's take care of it. Let's not just try and float away, you know. And this is one of those great herbs I like to use for that. Then we can go ahead with our reishi. Can you have a big bag here?
This is your big bag of reishi over here.
Yeah. So here I just had it cut up in what we call a tea cut, so it can decoct better. That's from the big mushroom caps that I had ground up.
So what you've done, what's gone on there is that's been broken up. We've taken this and broken it up into these little fine pieces. Okay.
So we're going to throw some of that in. Let's put a lot in there. Oh, the more reishi, the better. Okay, so we have a three treasures formula here. Here we go again. We got albizia flower. Really wonderful. Albizia flowers are wonderful.
Oh, that's awesome.
Albizia flower is said to help one overcome anxiety, heartbreak, and stress. And so we're going to put some of that in there. Now we have what's called definitely a wonderful three treasures tonic. We'll put some longan in there for fun. Another spirit herb. Now, what we'll do in the end, because, you know, I like to make it taste good.
Yeah,
what the heck?
we're with you on that
Right?
one.
I mean, we don't. Why torture ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And if you've been to the Chinese doctor, I mean, those teas, man, they work miraculously. Everybody knows, but just it's rough.
Yeah.
It's rough for the Western palate.
Yeah.
So we're going to actually use this herb called Lohan Guo.
Now that is an incredible herb from what you've been telling me about, this incredible fruit of a wild tree that comes from some of those exotic places in China that we've heard about and maybe even seen pictures of. Why don't you tell us about the properties of Lohan Guo?
All right, Lohan Guo is a wonderfully sweet herb. Let's go ahead and break it up and taste a little bit while we talk about it. I've got a little bit of an old coconut shell from last year that I found out here. I'm using it as my mortar and pestle in a rock. So let's get that broken up. All of the fruit is used. We'll taste the little seeds inside. A wonderfully sweet herb.
Oh,
now,
delicious.
The thing, this is actually classified as a lung immune tonic in Chinese herbalism.
Okay.
So for like weak lung qi, you would take this. So that's what's classified as. But it happens to be really sweet and beautiful. And yeah, Western they've tried to make some sweeteners out of it over here, but it's just too expensive.
Yeah.
Because
this is basically a wild food,
it's
right?
a wild.
That's what you're telling
the
us.
Chinese, they're really sticklers about if they're going to cultivate something that is one of their prized herbs. If they decide to cultivate it, they want to do that in a way that maintains its integrity. And if they can't figure out how to do that, they just won't do it.
Wow.
And so they just couldn't figure out how to cultivate this in a way where it didn't lose some of its beauty.
It's magic.
So, and that's a real testimonial to their wisdom. You know. It's
Yeah.
Hey, let's leave this alone. The same with Schisandra. They did the same thing. They never cultivated this berry. And we're going to put some of that in there in a minute. And so we're going to put some of that in there, and this just makes it taste great. Put a little bit of everything in. And lastly, for fun, we're going to put in what is considered by my teacher, Ron Teagarden. This is his favorite tonic herb. This is Schisandra. Again, a wild berry, never cultivated intentionally. Could have made a lot of people a lot of money as a sweet little tasty berry, but they said, no, we're not going to do that. And so it's as a tasting, it's intense. But this is the only. They call this the five tastes herb, and this is the only herb in the whole Chinese pharmacopoeia that is said to be tonifying to all five of the organ systems:
wow.
the spleen, liver, heart, lungs, and kidney. So any issue you have with a feeling of deficiency in any of those, you take Schisandra and you would feel. But I consider it a harmonizer in formulas. But one of the great tonic herbs because it tonifies every organ system. But Schisandra, you know, and we love to, you know, have our herbs as unprocessed as possible. This one's a great one. It's just decocted in a room temperature water overnight in a pitcher of water with a little honey. Man, you're talking about a great drink. Wow. Yeah. The Chinese say that if you take Schisandra for 90 days, you get a perpetual smile on your face. Oh, wow. Because it's so harmonizing to everything. And it's for that reason, it's considered a beauty herb. It's one of the great beauty herbs. And so add some of that in there. Now, right there, we have an amazing Three Treasures herb formula that gets in there, it tonifies the life force all the way down to the genetic level and brightens our light, makes our life more abundant. When we combine this with living food, it's like, wow. Yeah. We've got the alchemy of
5,000 years of history. Yeah. With the power of real, raw, living foods. Mm-hmm. And then we've also been able to get, you know, what I get from this herbal pharmacopoeia is that these are exotic plants. Right? Yeah, we're used to eating like lettuce and celery and cucumbers and tomatoes and avocados. But when you're dealing with this pharmacopoeia, we're dealing with some exotic, unique plants. Mm-hmm. And I always like to get that into my diet. And a lot of wild plants here, too. Mm-hmm. So to me, it just feels right. And, you know, over the years, as the raw food movement has matured, we've gotten out of, you know, no, you can't have tea, to realizing that we can actually amplify our health tremendously with these teas. Yeah. And why don't we go there now? Like, so you have this. Important. Let's say you got this home, right? Mm-hmm. And you're like, okay, now what do I do with this?
Okay, actually, to go back to your previous statement a little further, to go to that from, yes, we want teas, and so some people ask, well, why do you have to boil it for so long? You know, why can't I just have this? Can I eat it? Well. The difference is that these are roots, and these are they have what's called lignin cellulose. It's a kind of protein that makes trees stand up so they don't melt in the rain, and so that it becomes a rigid sort of cellulose. And these are generally from perennial plants. So perennial plants keep living year after year, and one of the two of the criteria for the longevity of a perennial plant is to be able to hold itself up, to withstand various seasons. And also to build up plant, medicines to protect itself from invasive parasites and other stuff. So that's where they get the plant chemistry. And so then when it gets into that stage, and as we're talking, our lettuce and the food we're eating are all annual. That grows. It's a plant grew out of the ground in 3 or 4 months. Its cellulose is still soft enough to eat. But these have turned into wood. And so when it gets to that stage, then we have to go in and unlock those nutrients. They've gotten locked in. Yep. And so the Chinese brilliantly long ago, and other cultures figured out that if they boiled it or heated it in water, they could soften that cellulose and unlock the... and there's a whole different class of nutrients we're looking at here, like polysaccharides and beta-glucans and that kind of stuff. Yeah. Everything from like triterpenes and all these things. So to enhance the biodiversity of our diet, which we really want. Going back to like hunter-gatherers, they had a biodiverse diet. Yep. When we look at their skeletons, we see thick, straight teeth, thick bones, no signs of osteoporosis or any of that in a lot of those hunter-gatherer cultures. And then as soon as agricultural cultures came in and started eating a few staple foods, even though back then they were probably eating in a really powered up soil, but when they reduced their foods to a few annual cultivars, we see the beginnings of disease showing up there in the anthropological record, or the archaeological record, what we call it. And so that's why we want to get these herbs into our, and yes, the cooking of this, the unlocking of those nutrients, we do lose the enzymes. Maybe there are still some enzymes left, but we're looking for enzymes with our food. That's why this combination is so beautiful.
Yeah, and when it's a liquid anyway...